Hello and welcome to the Mindful Man Project. This is where we discuss all the issues and pieces of the puzzle that is mental health. We look at the things in life that get people down or create anxiety in their life and hopefully give some guidance on how to become a modern mindful man or woman. I am your host, Tyson Venables. On today's episode we have Steve Buchler. He is a serial entrepreneur, father, been through his own shares of ups and downs, but overall an awesome dude and offers up some sage advice throughout the episode, so strap yourself in and have a listen. Good afternoon, guys. We're here today with Steve Buchler, one of my mates from Elwood. He is a bit of a businessman, been through a bit of a journey himself. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Just to get started, can you tell us a bit about yourself and what you've been up to, what you do for...
Yep. So I'm a bit of a serial entrepreneur as a business guy. So I think I'm onto my 5th company now since I was 18 years old. As a bit of a background, basically went to uni, did international trade. Out of that, I went straight into FMCG and brand management and marketing.
Oh, I love it, yep.
And then moved into running some bigger businesses within Australia, and then ended up getting off the bench and starting my own things. And now I'm currently running 3 companies.
How good. That sounds like a busy lifestyle.
Yeah, look, it isn't. One of the things that I really do focus on is making sure that my companies run themselves. So within those companies, I have management teams who generally run things day to day.
Yeah.
Because I'm always about making sure I've got some freedom.
Yeah, that's what you want, that balance.
Yeah, correct. So what it means is I actually get to work on the stuff that I now want to work on.
Yeah, and what's that?
Look, I think that you have to find balance in life. I think that there's a time to hustle and there's a time to also, reflect and to obviously enjoy yourself. And, you've only got one life. So, there's lots of passions that I have. Make sure that I take care of myself physically, make sure that I have a lot of fun, travel the world, see things. But also, I really get a kick out of making thoughts become things. Yeah. It's been one of my biggest manifesting things in my life. So these companies for me are really about, one of them in particular was an idea as I was flying on a plane 3 years ago to Thailand, and now it's been shortlisted with the Telstra awesome. Business Awards. So
yeah, that's big.
Yeah.
And that was just like, so did you have pain points and fear points like when you first decided to start that thing? Was like there was something that kind of held you back, or you just dove straight in? Are you like one of those type of people?
No, I mean, look, that particular company has a big story behind it, because what actually happened is in 2014 I split from my wife, and it was quite abrupt. I wasn't sort of expecting it to happen. And then and we owned a company together, and around 2 years later, she obviously decided that wasn't going to work anymore, but rather than consulting me, I walked into the office one day and 2 security guards met me, and I was summarily thrown out of my own company and lost the entire thing in literally 10 minutes.
Wow.
And that was a big business.
Yeah.
Which then ultimately led to a Supreme Court battle. So deciding to start again from scratch was a big deal.
Absolutely. Like going from something so big and then to nothing, and then to be able to start again, and to now where you're getting to with the business awards, it's amazing. It must have been such a big journey for yourself to get to that point.
Yeah. And look, it was trauma, it wasn't... I've started companies, before, but this one had full PTSD sort of trauma, it was, there was betrayal, there was loss, my confidence was shot. I mean, I actually took off and got out of town. I flew to Thailand with a mate of mine because I just needed to, I was having panic attacks, as I was walking down the street.
I can imagine.
I'd built a lifestyle up around, obviously, a company that made a lot of money, and that literally vanished overnight. So I was divesting, I was selling stuff, I was trying to get out of my house. I was like, it was panic stations.
Yeah, literally caught in the ripcord.
100%. Yeah. So went to Thailand, and I had this vivid experience where we were staying in this hotel, and it was at the bottom of this like massive hill, right? Like it must have been like some sort of volcano or something. But I remember standing at the bottom, looking up, going, Jesus, like I was up there, and now I'm down here, and can I actually do it again?
Yeah.
Like, do I actually have it in me? And I was full of fear, totally full of self-doubt. In my mind, 100%, I was like, I'm never going to get a client again. I'm never going to work again. It was dark. It's like I was, I wasn't getting out of bed. And meanwhile, I'm trying to fight this legal battle, and like I had money going out the door, like day after day, and like we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
So insane. To answer your question in a long way, there was tons of fear and self-doubt with that.
Yeah.
So, the way that I guess overcame that was I really started to not look at what was in front of me because it was too hard, right? It was like the road was too long. So instead,
that tunnel, that light at the end of the tunnel was a speck kind of situation.
It was. Yeah. So instead, I just started to visualize the end. And I know it sounds like counterintuitive, right? Because it's like, why would you think about the end when like there's so many things that have to happen? But I started to really tune into what it felt like for this company being massive.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
So I remember I was on this flight, and I just wrote on the top of the page the word next. And it was weird. I don't know where it came from. And a lot of people have asked me, did you call it Next because Steve Jobs called his company Next after he left? And I was like, I didn't even correlate that he got thrown out of his company and he called his new company Next. And I got thrown out of my company and I called my new company Next.
Just a coincidence.
It was just, I was actually sitting there on the plane going, what's next? What's next? And I just went, wow, Next is cool. Plus I love the X.
Yeah.
It's the coolest letter in the alphabet, right? I obviously like X-Men. And so, I just started to tune into the feeling of it. And I got a logo made up, and then I would spend a lot of time, it sounds very artsy, but I would spend a lot of time playing really empowering music and looking at the logo, and I got into the feeling of what this was going to be like when it was huge.
Yeah,
and I
that's
stopped
amazing.
Focusing on how will it be
The
huge.
road to,
Yeah. I just went, you know what? I'll work it out. I've done it before. Something will as long as my intention is right, and as long as I know where I'm going, the doors and, the path will be there.
Yeah.
And it was very much trust.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's ultimate trust, really. Like you're throwing yourself back into the fire, and that's one of the biggest things that I love about that point where you've come from nothing. Like you go back to the absolute bottom, and then it's like that lotus flower rising out of the shitstorm, because it's out of that muddy dirt, murky depths, until it becomes like this awesome flower. And that's a pretty cool story. Like next is like that. What's next is always somewhat, people are always kind of looking for. They're like, well, they finish something and they'll go, well, what's next? And that's a pretty powerful name to name your company, I feel like. Yeah.
Well, now they're all called Next because that one is a facilities management company, so it was Next Facilities Management. Then now I've got a structural engineering company, which is called Next Engineering, and now I've got a geotechnical engineering company, which is called Next Geotech, right? Yeah. But it's good because like the culture of the company is in the name. So continuous improvement, is constantly, innovation. Everything about the business is about next. What can we do next to improve? What can we do next to improve our clients? What can we do next to improve ourselves?
Yeah.
So it's right there, which is nice.
That's so good. And so from that, we had a little bit of a discussion when we went for dinner one night, how PTs and people in the health and wellness industry generally kind of have this little bit of a tendency to just like live paycheck to paycheck and not be able to pay bills, or not be able to pay their taxes on it like properly, or they're always on a payment plan, or not even just self-worth wise and getting paid what they should be getting paid. from a guy who's obviously now running 3 successful companies, do you see a way for those people to kind of start to implement some of the stuff that you know and you do into the way they can kind of do their business?
Yeah, 100%. So if I break that down into 2 primary components, right? Whenever anyone comes to me for business consulting, which I will often do for people, the first thing I start with is the psychology of wealth and success, right? And you cannot underestimate how important this is to the success of your business, right? And what I mean by that is, I remember before all this shit happened to me in 2016, someone said to me, I can't remember who, but they said, you know, a wealthy person, you can take all their money away and they'll have it back in 3 years. Mm-hmm. And you can take a poor person and give them a shitload of money and they'll lose it all within 3 years, right?
Yeah.
And I used to kind of get it, you know, sort of get it, whatever. But this experience made me live it, right?
Yeah.
And it was true because I got left with like zip. And in 3 years, my new company, just one of them, makes more than my other company did after 9 years.
Yeah, right.
So it literally happened to be. And so when people were asking me about it, I'm like, how is that? How was I able to do that? And the bottom line is that the first thing that anyone has to be able to do is to have their psychology aligned with success and wealth, right? If you have, everyone's got beliefs, right?
Yeah.
And if you have a belief that you're not a wealthy guy, right, then it doesn't matter what happens, you're never going to be a wealthy guy, right? Because it's just not in you, because it's not a belief that you have, right?
Yeah.
So the first thing you have to do is to modify that, right? And I know this, you know, when it comes to my fitness, right? That's always been one of the areas that I was always shitty in.
Yeah.
And it was just, I said, I'm not the fit guy, I'm not the fit guy. And then one day I was like, you know what? I can be the fit guy.
Yeah.
And I will be the fit guy. And then bit by bit, you take steps forward and ultimately people start going, oh, you're looking trim, and you become the fit guy, right?
Like since the last time we seen each other, you're looking a lot better than what you were last time, and you've obviously made those steps to...
Correct, right? So if the first thing people have to do is to do like a self-assessment on what is your relationship to money and to success, right? If you really intrinsically don't feel that you're worthy of it, it's just not going to find you, right?
Yeah.
The difference, what happened with me is I had already defined myself as a wealthy guy, right? Now, your belief system and your external environment always have to match. That's nature's law, right?
Yeah.
So if you believe that you're not wealthy and then a whole lot of money comes in, you will find ways to literally lose that money to make your belief system rematch your external environment.
Yeah, literally. Right? But that's that classic example of people who win lotto.
Correct. And they lose it all.
A year later, they're already back to where they were.
And they don't know how. It's like, oh, how do they manage to, attract in con man, or they invest in shitty things. And it's like, they're doing things subconsciously to push the money away because they're not worthy of it, right?
Yeah.
In my case, it was the opposite. You had a guy who felt, I am rich, I didn't have any money, and then in 3 years, the external reality changed to the belief system to the point where they matched again, right? So that's the first thing I would say to anyone starting out in business. It's, you need to have a really good look at the psychology that you have around money and around wealth. And the easiest way for anyone listening to do that, and even for you to do that, is that if I say to you, what does it look like when you have money in your life? Listen to the voice, right? Listen to the voice that comes up, the one that says, oh, no, you can't do that. Or if I say to you, imagine your life as a millionaire, and then the voice goes, I couldn't be a millionaire. He could be a millionaire, but I can't be a millionaire.
Yeah.
Like I was getting a haircut yesterday, and my fiance has also released a podcast, and I was listening to it with my hairdresser as she was cutting, right? And we were talking about how success and how my fiance has done so well, with changing her situation, right? Which was predominantly due to her hard work as well as my guidance with her business. And my hairdresser said, oh well, I could never do that. And I was like, whoa, shit
there's that
belief
limiting
system
belief
right
straight
there.
away, yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, keep saying that, dude, and that's how it's going to be. Now, I'm not a believer in positive affirmations, right? Because if you say, oh, I'm wealthy, but inside your voice is still saying, no, you're not, right?
Yeah.
Then all you're doing is refocusing on the fact that you're not. So it's about having a legitimate look at what it is, looking at those belief systems, then trying to understand how they're playing out in your life, right? So that's the first one. And that's what I would call, whenever I look at a situation in business, I say, is it cultural or is it structural, right? Cultural is psychology and culture and that sort of stuff. And structural is stuff that you can actually adjust and fix by making, changes to people or systems or processes. Yeah. So with my business, one of my business partners who I went into with engineering, because, with engineering, I needed a business partner because I'm not an engineer, right? It was a really interesting process because when I first joined into business with him, we were starting to grow really quickly and I could feel he was sabotaging, right?
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I'm like, we need to talk about you and money and your concept of worth. And he had a belief system that if he was wealthy, right, that equaled pain because he was a bad person. And I said, mate, if you believe that money is evil, you're never going to have it.
Yeah, and it's
right?
that classic thing is like money is the root of all evil, but it's not actually the root of all evil if you know how to live into your own values.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's intention, right? You can do terrible things with money once you have it, or you can do really good things with money, right? So in the end, it's how you choose to wield it. But right, in his case, I said to him, you need to make peace with money, right? You need to be okay with being wealthy. Otherwise, you're going to find ways to stop what you actually want, right? And the funny thing is that people who talk about like, I want to be rich or I want to be wealthy or I want a successful business, it's like you might consciously in your heart want that. But if your ego doesn't believe that you can, or if your ego believes that you're not good enough or not worthy enough, then you're going to massive fight on your hands, right? So the first thing you need to do is get psychological alignment of abundance and success, right? So I work on people with that. The second part is then the structural thing, as you were saying, they don't pay taxes, they don't do this, they don't do that. And my advice to whether you're a PT or a yoga instructor or a wellness coach or whatever is you need to get a PT coach wellness person in relation to money, right? Like the reason that we come to you to train us with our health is because you know everything there is to know about, personal training, and I don't, right?
Yeah.
And the same thing goes the other way. It's like you guys never get taught in any, whether you look at primary school, high school, whether you go and do your PT course, they don't teach you how to run a company, right?
Exactly, yeah.
They don't teach you sales. They don't teach you how to use pain and pleasure in the sales process. They don't teach you, how margin creep works or how you can maximize profit or any of that sort of stuff. One of the things that I know how to do in any business is that, right? Yeah. Which is why whether it's an engineering company or, a recruitment company or my fiance's coaching meditation business, I'm able to generate massive results. Is because that's what I know how to do.
Yeah, and you understand it. You're a specialist in that field for a reason, and that's
Correct.
The thing is like.
So it's about investment, right?
Absolutely.
So, and I know it's hard because, a lot of the people when they're starting out or if they're listening or if they're struggling in their business, right? It's like, yeah, but Steve, I don't have the money to spend the money on getting the coaching. And to me, that's like, I don't have time to stop and fill up with gas.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You're going to run out, which means you're not going to reach your destination. So it's like, suck it up. Make the investment because the investment pays off like 10 times over, right?
Yeah.
Bit of pain, like it's, and once again, it's that faith, right? It's investing, you're investing in yourself, you're investing in your business, you're investing in your future by not taking shortcuts, at the start, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny because, like I've got so many people in this space and like they'll spend shit tons of money at Lululemon on their yoga gear and, and on their mats and on their this and that. It's like, yeah, okay, but hang on. Like in the end, the entire thing that's going to make this thing go round is the business.
Clothes, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's about understanding, how do you rebook clients automatically? How can you upsell into packages? How can you, but also making sure that you're doing it with integrity, right?
Yeah.
And authentically. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not into ripping people off ever.
Yeah.
But you have an obligation, right? Especially in the wellness space, right? If some fat person rocks up, right, and you can see that this person is going to have a very short lifespan if they don't change their ways, I believe you have an obligation to use every tactic in the book to get them to buy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If, conversely to that, if you find somebody who basically is already doing very well and, you would be conning them to buy something, well, then you shouldn't, right?
Yeah.
But there are definite skills, strategies, and systems that you can do to increase the amount of sales that you make.
Yeah.
And that's what I show people how to do.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, like, just even from our chats earlier on and stuff like that, you have a wealth of knowledge that people should be able to hear and tap into. And just even sitting here today is like you've those 3 nuggets of gold are just, like, to start with those and go from there. Like, mindset's one of those biggest things. It's like even in training and stuff like that, like, if your mind isn't on your goal and where you're going to go, your body's not going to follow. And it's the same thing in business and in love or your relationships. Like, if your brain isn't in the space where you want to actually succeed in this relationship, you're self-sabotaging the relationship, whatever relationship it is, it's going to always come down to failure unless you change that mindset. And so I feel that, those 3 points that you've delivered is absolute gold. Yeah.
And look, the thing is, it's so funny when you actually look at people from the outside, right? Like, what they think they're focused on is not what they're focused on, right? And even that simple thing of if you're chasing wealth, you think you're focused on wealth, but you're not. You're focused on lack because you're trying to run away.
You're trying to get out of that
from being poor, right? So you're actually focusing more on the fact that you're poor than on the wealth, right? Which is why, as I said, when I launched that business, I just sat in the end result emotion of what I wanted, right? I didn't want to run away from not having a company. I really tried to tune into what this company felt like, right? What it looked like, what it felt like, who were the people that were there, how were we serving, and then obviously that linked with my skill set, we just sort of pushed through. So it's been a bloody amazing ride. But one of my biggest issues is that I don't allow myself to feel pride, right? So this thing with the Telstra Business Awards going from over 2,000 companies down to the final 6, it's been really humbling, because to be able to do that in 2.5 years has been awesome.
Yeah, and especially that's like a tangible result for you as well. You can see, okay, well, that's recognition from an outside source going, this business is good, like a great business. Whereas, like, if you just had a good business and you're like, yeah, it's going well, but you've got someone actually patting you on the back and cheering for you, it just adds that a little bit of extra pride to it, where, like, quite often we don't actually get told. Yeah, you're doing a really good job. Like,
100%. I mean, the things. I know all the different feelings that business owners face. I have frustrating days. I have days when I'm shitty, and the bottom line is that one of the core values that I live by is the past is not equal to the future. Right? Now, I got it from Anthony Robbins when I was young, and it stuck with me. But you need it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You have to know that the yesterday does not equal tomorrow, right? And you can change it, right? And I've seen it now so many times. Like once again, my fiance, right? We've tripled her business in 12 months, right? She was driving all over town to make 1/3 of the money, and now she basically makes triple the amount of money and does about 1/3 of the work, right? One idea that we implemented for her sees her work about 1 hour a week, and it yields well over $60,000 a year, right? Yeah. So, there is 100% value in people having a positive belief system that change is possible. And as I said before, like, find the people who can help you. You guys aren't alone, right?
Yeah.
Like, model. You know, if you've got someone who you know who has helped somebody else in your exact shoes do what you want to achieve, right? Like, observe the obvious. Go find that person and say, do for me what you did for them. Yeah. I mean, that's what we do with PTs, right? We're like, oh, you made that person look hot, so just if I know that if he does the same thing for me and I do the same thing, I'll get the same outcomes.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with business.
Yeah, exactly. So that's such a valid point, because it's like quite often you just sit there bashing your head against the wall. Like, what am I going to do? It's like, well, that's one thing I've really learned in the last 9 months, 10 months, is like, I can either sit in frustration and try and battle through and do this stuff myself, or seek out people who are specialists in their field, who have done it before, who have proven the results, who then can turn that around a lot quicker, which is then me spending a lot less time and valuing my time. Whereas, like, oh, you're not getting paid for that 30 hours that you just sat in front of a computer trying to work out how to build a website. Whereas if you spent $1,000 for a person to sit in 10 hours and build your website, and it's now functioning and it's got all the back end SEO and everything running for you, it's money in the bank eventually. Like, it may not be money in the bank. You might have that, like you said, you take the hit. It's like that small, the short-term pain for a long-term gain. Or you can have long-term pain for a short-term gain.
Exactly.
So it's, it makes so much sense. And that's one thing is, like, I've really been with myself, is been working on changing those patterns and changing those beliefs and those thought systems. And that's one thing I can really hit home with people who are listening as well, is like looking at those things, those patterns where you start to think about, this keeps happening for me. Let's ask the question, why does it keep happening? And then change that thought process. And then that's the stuff that, or seek someone out that can start to help change that thought process, or help change that place that keeps coming up for you. Like, finances keep dwindling. Go see a financial advisor. Go see a relationship counselor, or just a counselor in general who can bounce ideas off the wall. Like, that's one thing is also, like, I find that the stigma behind counselors and stuff like that, where people I'm going to go see a shrink, but it's like, that person is someone outside your circle who can then help you unpack your thoughts and go, this is why, have you thought about this? And you're like, aha, the light bulb goes off, and you go, okay, cool, like, let's put this in place, let's put that in place. And I think that's why where you've come from to where you are now it's amazing. It's like, you've done the work, and you know the mindset behind it that needs to change. And yeah, I love that.
Yeah, 100%.
Final 3 questions, or final 3 things. We close this with every guest. What 3 things would you tell your younger self now?
So, the first thing I would say to my younger self is that stuff that you think matters doesn't matter, right? So, you know, I talk to my current self, right? There'll be things that happen day to day, you know, and you can't always control stimulus, but you can always control your response. But, you know, I think about all the times that I spent, you know, especially with that, you know, the legal stuff, and like how much stress I released into my body and how much self-damage I did. And, you know, my grandfather is 108 years old, right? He's 109 in November.
That's insane.
Now, it's like, when you look at a timeline that long, any day is a blip.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
And what I would tell myself is, think before you react. And if you're not going to remember this when you're rocking on your chair at 90, then let it go now. Right? So many people hang on to shit for so much longer than they need to, and it's just a weight you don't need to carry. So that's probably one thing I tell my younger self. The second thing I tell my younger self is, lay off the junk food, because I'm dealing with it now, you bastard. Because if I was fitter when I was younger, then I wouldn't have had to go through bloody... for anyone listening, I'm not like, 600-pound life and like can't get out of here without like a forklift. But I'm just currently going through a bit of a health phase to trim now. The third thing that I would say to my younger self is probably to listen more than talk.
Yeah, it's
like I think, and this goes for business and it goes for life, right? If you can actively listen to somebody and truly connect with someone and be present and listen, your ability to solve their problems is so much better. So many people are just waiting for their turn to speak, right? And I've been guilty of it too, and obviously as you get older, I mean, I'm 42 now, right? I've got 2 young daughters and, I think you start to become a lot more philosophical as you get older, but yeah, just sometimes I even find myself talking and I'm just like, dude, just shut up. Like what you're saying doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And just be quiet. Like, why do you need to talk? And probably, and one last one is, which is controversial, right?
Yeah. Bit of controversy in that.
Yeah. Well, the controversy is that I've come to the realization, as devastatingly unpleasant as it is, right, that life does not matter.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And in the end, when you die, there'll be a small group of people who are deeply affected and maybe a few others that are a bit wider. But in the end, we're just people floating on this bit of dust in the middle of this cosmos, and it really doesn't matter what you do, right? Yeah. And in some ways, it's like frightening that you realise that there is no meaning and no purpose, and it doesn't matter. But on the other hand, it's actually liberating, because it's like, all right, well, if it doesn't matter, then I can go and have a good play with this and have some fun with it.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah, so that's the other thing I would tell my younger self. I would deliver that shitty news early and say, you know what, like, it doesn't matter. The stuff that you think matters doesn't matter. That doesn't mean go and off yourself.
Yeah.
It means, like, relax
and enjoy it.
That's it. Like, good, bad, it only matters if you give it meaning, right? So just experience it all. Like, if stuff, if you have a good day, if you're having a bad day, but just try and really hone in on what's important for you as a person, and then make sure that you're building a life that leads you to that.
Yeah, love it.
There you go.
It's awesome.
Philosophically deep.
For everybody listening at home, where can they find you? Socials or website?
Yeah. So if you want to, I put stuff on Instagram in relation to business and just general thoughts. So you can follow at Steve_Buchler, which is BUCHLER. That's probably the main one that I use. So if anyone's interested, and as I said, I do business consulting. If there's people out there who are struggling in business, I'm happy to hear from you and to give you an assessment to see if I think I can help, which generally I can. Awesome.
I'll put all of Steve's details in the show notes, and thanks.
No worries.
That was awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome, dude.
Thanks, man. Well, we have some exciting news. Myself and Emma are launching a health and fitness retreat in Jan Juk in November. 3 nights of accommodation, yoga, fitness, surfing, and some meditation thrown in. If you want to get involved, check out the link in the website. Spaces are limited, so make sure you get in first as we are filling up fast. Well, that brings us to the end of today's show. If you like what you heard and want to get all the info, check out the show notes. While you're there, rate and review the show. And one last thing, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the upcoming episodes. Until next time, my friends, continue to look out for each other and continue to lift each other up.